I've been designing a poster every single day since about late January. It's late March now. And obviously I plan on continuing this further and trying to go for the full year. But I wanted to share the first 30 days of design that I did, focusing mainly on poster design, just to show a little bit of my journey from where I started on my first day of design until the 30th day. And I'm gonna be doing a little bit of a back and forth, showing the designs that I did, going through them just on my Instagram, because I post every single design on my Instagram daily, and with me going over the poster designs in the program that I use, Affinity Photo. I use Affinity Photo and not Photoshop. I know how to use Photoshop, but I do not want to be spending that much fucking money every single month on Adobe programs, so I'm just using Affinity Photo because it's a one-time payment and it's pretty comparable, as you will see. But without any further ado, let's get into it. So the first design that I made, starting this little challenge of mine, is the Sky is the Limit poster. And I will let PC Chris explain this a little bit further.
For this poster design, it's pretty simple. I just took this graphic in the background of the little sky overpass composition. I took it, I shrunk it down, cropped it a little bit to where the bridge is just right here at the bottom, get the clouds peeking through, and then the sky is completely open to put some text in. Then over here on the right, I got a group with all of the Sky the Limits multiplied on top of themselves with different little effects. Got a little color burn on here, got a color overlay, and each of these are slightly more dithered than the last one, so it has this kind of fluffy cloud texture to mimic the clouds down here because they're in the sky. Then I got these two little inspirational things at the bottom because I want to add a little bit more text, a little on the lower scale. I think that definitely could have executed this better, but I think for a first poster design that this is pretty good.
But yeah, I like how this one ended up turning out. I'm not super proud of it, obviously, because it's my first design. There's some improvements that can be made on it, but I like how the overall look of it is. And on to the next poster. Next poster design that I have is my Thursday poster poster design.
For this poster design, I just added this little text up here for the date that I made it, and it was a Thursday, if you couldn't tell. I made a little mask here to put this photo in with the Thursday type in a nice little square. And then I also edited the mask a little bit to have the bottom corner of this ledge that he's sitting on coming in from the bottom, because I thought that would be a cool thing to add to the composition. Get this whole pipe hanging out too. Add these few little color squares up here. For the background, I got this paper texture that is overlaid on top of this color, so it gives it this warm color that kind of mimics the color of the shoes and the concrete. And at some point I debated on adding this little star either down here or something, or kind of overlaying around here or something, but I decided against that. Got some film grains over top of this. I don't think I did any dither for this, but I did edit the image a little bit, added some more film grain. But yeah, pretty cool design.
Backstory behind this is pretty simple. It was Thursday, February 6th, and I mainly wanted to try mimicking a design that I saw on Pinterest, but with this really cool photo that I found on there as well. I think the colors in here look super nice together, work super well, intertwining with each other. It's not super original, obviously, I was mimicking something, but it was a fun exercise and I think it looks sick. Swapping over to my website for showing these off because Instagram is acting a little funny on the iPad. But next design, we got Take a Breather.
Found this image off of Pinterest, thought that it was a really nice image and that this space up here was perfect to put some text up into. For the text, I ended up using Sora Bold and Sora Regular. And on this bigger Take a Breather text, I ended up adding a little bit of a Gaussian blur around it so it kind of looks a little faded. And I did that twice with different radiuses on this one and this one. I was kind of trying to mimic the effect on this text from a YouTube video from Frankie Harry, because I liked how it looked like it was kind of glowing. The quality of this is bad, but you can kind of see. Then I added the little date down here, really small, centered at the bottom of the page. And now that I added a little bit of extra film grain to this as well.
I really like how the composition of this one looks and how the colors are interacting with each other on this one, how I ended up using that same orangey hue. I believe that I actually color swapped the light down in the bottom left corner of the image for that Take a Breather text and the rest of the text as well. But I really like the composition of this one. Though it is very simple, I think that it works nice. Next up, we got my Porter Robinson poster.
For this design, I had a few reference images that I grabbed from some promotional material from Porter Robinson on his album rollout, and a couple images that are from his actual concerts, if you can tell by him standing on the stage down here. For the big star in the background, we have this photo of him from his promo material. I just cut out the star around him. You got something like this. I left the edges a little rough and pixelated because I thought that that would be a little cooler. I wanted to find his logos that he had for this album, for his Porter Robinson, for his little logo of himself. So I found this and I took these out. Similar to the star, I found this image of him from some promo work and I roughly masked it out with a nice rough dry brush. And then I ended up placing that star behind his head here. I took this image that was a concert image from one of his shows from his recent tour. I wanted the main focuses of this poster to be around these lyrics of "Don't Kill Yourself, You Idiot" from one of his songs, and himself. As you can see, the image here didn't quite extend all the way up where I wanted this to be placed, so I just added another one and flipped it at the top. Put his logo up in the top right here, plopped him and the star in, put the "You Idiot" down here. Found this from another image from his show and I put that up on top of here. And I thought about using these little guys, but then decided against it. And yeah, this is the final.
This is the first of many Porter Robinson posters that I've made throughout this month, but I wanted to focus mainly on the album aesthetic from his Smile album. I like how this one turned out a lot. Love the colors, love the roughness of it. Love that it looks kind of grungy and like postered together, like cut and pasted together. Next poster, we got the "I'm in Your Walls" poster. This one was kind of funny. I was literally scrolling through Twitter one day and ended up coming across this image that somebody posted with the caption of something like "my hair after coming out of the shower." And it's just the shadow of them like shown on the wall behind them with their hair like flicking out.
So I ended up taking that image and bringing it in. And then I zoomed in right on that head and cropped everything else out that was in the image. I very crudely and roughly cut out the image and placed it on top. I thought that the photo was missing a little bit of ambiance, so I added this picture that I found online of this like dive bar staircase going down, and I put that behind. And then I had 3 different copies of this original image, one with a contrast and a gate, one with a luminosity, and one with a color. And if you add them on top of one another, you have the contrast and the gate, add the luminosity, and you get this. Adds a little bit of a blue tint glow. And then for this, I added the color back in of the original cutout, which brings it back to that muted color on the figure. And then I added in this nice spooky and faded "I'm in Your Walls." Got a little bit of a glow effect around the text. And then down at the bottom, I put a similar glow effect, "Try to Find Me," very small, as if it's talking to you.
And I thought that it kind of looked a little spooky and a little like analog horror-esque, and I'm super into analog horror. I got into it sometime last year. So I wanted to make something that was a little spooky vibe to it. I think that this one's funny, and I liked how it turned out. Next poster design, Just Kick It. I was getting super into doing a lot of designs for like Vans or like skating editorials and stuff like that. So this kind of felt like a progression of that. One design that I really like that came out of this is a Vans editorial square post of their slogan "Off the Wall," and I ended up making a little editorial of this guy pushing off of a longboard going down a boardwalk, and his back shoe is like poking through the text of "Off the Wall." It looks awesome. But yeah, I ended up finding this image off of Pinterest, and I liked how the shoes were coming up into the sky, and I liked the colors of the shoe, the color blocking of the shoe. So to go along with that color blocking of the shoe, I ended up making the text out of this like cut and paste magazine lettering that kind of mimics the colors that are in that shoe.
Cut them out from this little photo that I found online, enlarged them a bit, changed the colors a little bit of them, I think. Added an outer shadow to them a little bit. I added these fluffy cloud-looking strokes that are going roughly around the silhouette of these shoes in the background to kind of mimic the clouds. And then I added this little vibrance adjustment on top of everything to kind of make it pop a little bit more in those blues and those reds.
Along in that same vein, I have this Vans off the wall poster design.
I'm not going to talk about this one much because I don't really like how this ended up turning out. But I started off with this photo of this guy doing an ollie over a bike rack and a few skateboards. I like the composition of this photo and I wanted to use it for a poster design or like a poster ad for Vans. But I thought that the image itself was a little muted and dull. So I brought it into Affinity Photo and I added a lieu of adjustments to the original image to kind of make it look like the 90s aesthetic of skateboarding a little bit with these exaggerated colors. So I got a posterize adjustment on it and then some shadow highlight adjustments, channel mixer, gradient map, LUT, lens filter, then an overall levels, white balance, posterize, and vibrance adjustment on everything. And then I added these, what I thought at the time were some cool little color swooshes of his foot coming off into them. I don't like how I executed it though, so I'm not super proud of this, but I do like how the image itself turned out.
I do not like how this poster design turned out very much, but like I said, I do really like how the image itself turned out and how I edited the image, so ended up learning something. This is a poster design that I didn't talk about in the editing room, but I got this "Are You Happy Yet" poster design. For this one, I had heard somebody say that a good way of coming up with inspiration and like a subject for your designs is by going through some photography that you've had and picking one element out of that photography and using that. So for this one, I sifted through some images from one of my New York trips and I found this little guy that's on a mailbox off of the road. I'll put an image up of that. I ended up taking that little spray paint design and masking him out of that and using him and blowing him up in the background and adding this glowing "Are You Happy Yet" text on top of it. Quick little fun design. And using that same exact method, I also created this Dog Days poster. Same method, same set of images. Went through my archived images from one of my New York trips, found this, zoomed in on this little post that was on the back of a light post, blew that up super big, and then blew up the image that it is from super big in the background, added this crumpled paper texture over top of it to kind of go along with this like postery look of this cutout of this dog, and added some inspirational text to go along with that. Next up, I got my second Porter Robinson posters. I ended up making two variations of this, one where it's this one with orange and a more diffused look to it, and one where it is this one where it is pink and has more of a halftone look to it.
For this, I collected a few images of Porter throughout his different major album release eras. So you got one from Spitfire, one from Worlds, one from Nurture, and then I ended up choosing this one for his Smile era. And then they're placed chronologically from bottom to top from earliest to newest, which I also indicated down here with this little bit of text at the bottom. I put the label that he's assigned to down in the bottom right, the mom and pop label. And of course I changed the color from pink to orange based on what one is being shown. And as a little bit of an overlay on all of them, I have this cardboard paper texture because this is what it looks like originally, which I do kind of like how this looks. But whenever you overlay this cardboard texture on top of it, it gives it more of this blue hue to it, which complements the orange really well. So I decided to keep that added. And it does the same thing with the halftone as well, where without it, it's more of this tan muted color. Bring this in, pops it in blue a little bit more, which also happens to complement the pink.
I really like how these ones turned out. And one thing that's kind of funny about these posters is that whenever I uploaded these onto Instagram and my friend saw them for the first time, or when I showed them to my friend the first time, he initially thought that it was like the Beatles or something because it's got 4 sets of eyes. So he was like, oh, is that Ringo? Is that John? And then he eventually realized, oh, fucking of course, it's another Porter Robinson design. This guy fucking loves Porter for some reason. I think that I'm slowly converting him into a bit of a Porter Robinson fan on the low. We'll see how that turns out. It worked with Weezer. Next up, we got another Porter Robinson design. You're nearly there. Keep it going, keep it going.
I found this really cool image of this woman standing in a field and looking out to this really cool cloud formation in the distance. And like a lot of other images that I sourced from Pinterest, this had a perfect area up in that sky to put some text. So I ended up putting the lyrics, "You're nearly there, keep going, keep going, keep going, it'll all be okay in the end," staggering down, repeating 3 times, and then I nicely nested this text down here in between the bottom margin and the woman standing. And I really like how the text is up in the sky, because it's almost like instead of her looking out to these clouds anymore, she's looking out to the message that is being displayed up there. I put an overlay on the keep going text, but left the rest of it just normal. And it's very hard to tell, but on this background image, I have a very, very light halftone. But if you zoom in, you can kind of tell that there's some dots around there.
I really like the messaging behind this poster and the messaging behind the song that it's associated with. And this might be one of my favorite posters that I've made in this first month. Part of me almost wants to print this and post it up on my wall. And to you other Porter Robinson fans out there, I'm aware that I'm missing a keep going in this. I know that it says it 4 times, but I swear I tried it with 4. It didn't look that great to me. I thought 3 looked better, so it is what it is. Next up, we got a little advertisement for the camera that I'm using to record this right now. I wanted to make a little poster design that was like an ad design just to prove that I could do it. And I thought, what better thing to make an ad design on than this camera that I'm using right now, and this camera that I had just bought at the time. So I made this quick little poster design with the key features of the camera listed below the Sony up at the top, along with a couple things that come with it in the package. Down at the bottom, I have a little blurb of text that Sony themselves wrote about the camera that was up on the product page. Then the barcode that's in the bottom left is the actual barcode from the box that I got the camera in. I scanned it and brought it into my program.
Added a heavy 20% intensity noise over top of this whole design. I put a couple paper textures in the background, very light at 11 and 15%. I added a little bit more noise and a Gaussian blur on this specific spot of the camera. Added a little bit of extra noise down here on these images as well, these little noise filters. And then there's 2 versions of this one as well. This one that would be more used as an actual ad for Sony. I think that it could be used as one. Then I have this version as well, where it is a lot more grungy looking. And I kind of like how this one looks as well, so I ended up posting this one as well because it kind of puts a lot of focus on the human aspects of the camera, like the hand silhouette that's coming in and holding it, and it puts a light silhouette on the parts of the camera that actually make it work, like the lens and the viewfinder.
I really like how these posters ended up turning out, and hey Sony, if you see this and you want me to make a poster design or anything for you, hit me up. I'm free. I can do a poster design. I'm free. Come on. I can also use the money, you know. But next design that I have is not a poster design. It is an album cover design. But this one is not for Porter, but for Madeon, which is like the same thing, honestly. I mean, they've worked together a lot. They've done a lot of music together. They have similar fan bases, similar music. But I had used to listen to Madeon whenever I was like 14, along the same time that I found out about Porter as well. And I'd started getting back into him and noticed that he posted a few of these photos up onto his Instagram, teasing an album rollout, perhaps, for a new album.
Of him just kind of, standing there. This is the one that I pulled directly from his Instagram and ended up using, as shown by the literal tabs that go left and right in his carousel.
And for those of you who don't know who Madeon is, but see a striking resemblance in this photo to somebody else, I am aware, and a lot of Madeon's fans are aware, he looks like Jesse Pinkman, okay? He looks like Jesse Pinkman with his shaved head. I just thought I'd bring that up, because I know that somebody might bring that up.
But I thought that it was fitting to make an album cover for him out of an image of him, because on his last album, Good Faith, he had one that was also an image of him that was heavily edited as well. So for this one, I added a ton of diffusions on him and a ton of masks and a few different copies of the image itself with additions of color and saturation on top of them. You can see this is without those, and then this is adding those on. I got this gradient coming from left to right on top of it all. That's adding a nice little soft light to it all. Then down here we got a mask that is adding a soft light diffusion onto him. It's very, very subtle. This one is adding a color dodge diffusion. I like how this one interacts with it because it makes this light kind of pop off of him with speckles on his back here. This one is a contrast negate on the original image at the very bottom. If we take the original image away, it becomes very dead. But if we take the contrast negate away, it kind of gets rid of a lot of that softness that is in the album cover. Then this one is the real meat and potatoes of the image that is holding it together. It's got a live diffuse on it, and it's 75% of what the original image actually is. But if you take that away, it really takes away the image. I also forgot to add that this image down here also has a halftone on it. Not a big one, 16, 17, but it's like kind of noticeable.
But I did a few color variations of this as well, and I'll display those up on the screen at some point. I am a big fan of how these ones ended up turning out. I tagged Maddyon in them. I don't know if he saw them. I hope he does. But he also hasn't posted a single thing onto Instagram since he's posted these images. So maybe he just hasn't got on social media yet. Maybe that's why he hasn't seen them. It'd be so cool if he would give me a like. That'd be so cool. Maybe a share on the story. But yeah, I really like how these turned out. One that I'm not happy with how it turned out. There was bound to be a couple that I wasn't gonna be happy with throughout this month. But we have this Can You Show Me a Miracle poster. This is a lyric from one of Maddyon's songs, aptly titled Miracle. But I definitely overcooked on this one and ended up kind of botching the execution of it.
I found this really cool image of this tree that's sitting in the middle of a valley with this flower field that's in front of it, and I really wanted to use this in some way for a poster design, and this is what I ended up coming up with, and to be frank, I'm not proud of it. The way that this turned out is very lackluster, in my opinion. But down here we got all my different layers of me messing around with this tree. We got the original image with nothing done to it at the very bottom. Then we got one with a color halftone on it, and we can add that on top of that. Then we got this one with two different halftones on it for some reason. Add that on, and these have saturation as their layer effect. Then we got this one with a hard light and a diffusion. Add that on. Lighter color, halftone, and diffuse. Add that on. This one's masked out and has a diffuse and lighter color. Add that on. It's added on for just the sky to bring the sky back. Then we got a lot of this gradient here. One that adds a color, one that adds a lighter color, one for contrast negate, and one to average. And then one at the very top that has a diffuse and a noise that multiplies on top of all of it. I really wish that this ended up rendering out a little bit better, because if you zoom in, it has a lot more texture on all these diffusions. But whenever you zoom out and what you see whenever it's exported, it kind of disappears.
I liked some elements of it, but overall, I think I could have done better. Anyway, next one, we got this quick little poster design that I did to sell my drawing tablet. I got this tablet whenever I was still in college doing my advanced illustration class. I used it a lot for that class and during that semester, but I haven't used it a lot since. I used it for illustrations like this and this and this. But since I hadn't used it in a long time, and I had also recently bought this, I wasn't really using it anymore, so I thought might as well sell it back to some of the students that could use it. So I made this quick little poster design.
I quickly grabbed this image from the XP Pen website that they use as promotional to sell this, with a little pen next to it. Added this drop shadow to the back, as seen with this layer and this layer. Added this little sticker to the corner here, and I like how this turned out. I used the perspective tool to make it actually with the line of the tablet itself. Big up top, drawing tablet for sale, bolded for sale, because that's the most important part of this. All of the stuff that it comes with down here listed. Little blurb about it being lightly used, so there might be some wear on screen protector, yada yada. My contacts, and then in the background I added this like kind of Target-esque sale going across it. I don't know why it reminds me of Target. And I made sure that all of these A's of sail are perfectly going down in a diagonal line with one another. And it worked. Only took about a week to sew it.
Next two posters are both based around Kendrick Lamar. But we got this one that I did that was more mimicking a poster design that I see a lot on social media, where you take an album and you list the tracks down at the bottom. You have the album cover up at the top. You have the color palette of the album, and you have the album name and artist name. But I was listening to this album whenever it came out a whole lot, so I wanted to do a couple of designs for that.
For this one, I added a little bit of diffuse on the actual album cover itself, nothing major. In the background, I have this very light paper texture of 11%, that's on the back. If you can kind of tell. I added this soft light rectangle on top of the entire image, on the entire poster, that just kind of darkens it a little bit. Added the parental advisory sticker, and then the background has this off-white.
With the other design being this design that I did around the Super Bowl performance that he did.
This is a line that he said at the Super Bowl performance, and also a image of him at the Super Bowl performance. I masked out him on the background and diffused the background around him to put a little bit more emphasis on him and his GNX. Then I also cut out him himself, and I added a little glow of this very light blue and layered that on top. I added this 40 Acres and a Mule twice, one where it is just multiplying on the background and one where it is on top of that, saturating it, which doesn't seem to really do anything, but it also has a diffuse on it, a very small 1% diffuse. And then on top of all that, some noise. I'm not super fond of how this turned out. I think I could have done this a little bit better, but I kind of like it.
Next design that I have is a little mock gallery exhibition design that I did called Bloom in Technicolor. I did a few variations of this one, and it was meant to be like a mock photography exhibition type of thing, because I wanted to do something a little bit different from like the inspirational stuff that I had been doing throughout this month.
The original reference image for this was this cool image, similar to the You're Nearly There, Keep Going design, but a little different in composition. But I liked this image, but I didn't know if there was anywhere that I could really place text in here that looked super nice. So instead, I got some stock photography of some flowers. I ended up picking this one. And then I masked that image into the flower. I added this 4% diffuse on it, so it kind of feathers the edge a little bit. I thought that this bottom left was missing a little bit of blue down here, so I added a cropped version of that same flower down here. Added a couple paper tear textures to the bottom here that adds a little bit of white into the entirety of the image. That brings in a lot of white, makes the composition a lot more white. In the background of the whole image, I have this grainy black texture. And then I added this like folded texture on top of it, like this folded poster board, just to make it look a little bit more distressed. And then I put the type like so.
I think my favorite variation of these that I ended up doing was probably this one, the one where it's a little bit more muted in colors, but it's not quite straight black and white. I do like the black and white one too. Next design that I did for the month was not a poster design either, but it was this little email blast design that I did for Crumble. I'm not going to talk about this too much because I already have a video up on my channel about me doing this design and going through this design, making it. So if you want to go and check that out, you can. I'll link it down in the description or like that thing up in the top right or whatever. Next design that I have that is a poster design is When Will You Grow Up? I did a few color variations of this one as well. I think I ended up doing 6 total. 3 that are in the lighter color and then 3 that are in a darker color as well.
For this one, the original file that I have for this got corrupted, but you can get the gist from this. It's pretty similar. Started off with this cool picture of this girl that I found on Pinterest. Thought that her outfit and her pose was sick. Brought that into Photoshop and I added a nice little live diffuse and a halftone to it to make it more posterized looking. This is that with just the halftone and diffuse. This is a thing that I do a lot of the time. I think it looks sick. But to add a little bit of color back into it, I took the original image with no diffusion and just made it reflect. And then another one that has a color halftone instead of the black and white halftone. And the halftone is set to blend mode luminosity. And then the layer effect is on darker color, which brings a little bit of the color of her skin back in. Then I added the text, when you grow up, added a live diffuse to both of them, and contrast negate to both of them. And doing the contrast negate allows it to have the original green color of the text without it only show up on the areas where it is overlapping the original image. So it kind of has this cool in and out effect. And to get all the different color variations of this, I just take a rectangle, put it over top of the whole thing, set it to the center of the color wheel, and I just start kind of flipping around through the layer effects until I find something that looks kind of cool. And I spin through here to get the different color variations of that.
This poster has a little bit of a hidden meaning behind it for me, along with a lot of these posters that I'm talking about today. If you want to know a little bit about the meaning behind any of these posters, go ahead and check out my Instagram. In the descriptions of every single one of my posts, I do a little bit of a blurb about what the poster means to me and what the meaning behind it is to me. And a lot of it is like inspirational and uplifting, that sort of thing. Next poster design that we got is, what are you waiting for? It's not gonna happen by itself. Once again, kind of inspirational poster design with a little bit of meaning behind it to me personally that I shared on my Instagram. And this one I ended up doing 4 different variations of. One that's more of the original color of the reference photo that I ended up using. And then 3 that are more just like a straight one color over the top of the entire thing. Either mostly light or mostly dark.
The original of this one seems to be messed up as well, and it ended up on this last variation of it. But we start off the original image. On top of that, we have one with a little bit of noise and a little bit of diffusion. The diffusion being in the lighten effect. Then we got another just live diffuse. Then we got one of the original image that has a vignette, halftone, and diffuse on top of it. Then we got the image with a halftone, noise, and diffusion. Then we add the text, and then we add the color that is on top of that text. And we end up getting something a little like this.
I really like how the colors ended up looking on all of these, and the meaning behind it is something that really resonates with me as of lately. Next poster design that I did that has 4 variations as well, but not as drastic, is we don't know what tomorrow brings. Meaning behind this poster is more rooted in just life and like the world around us and what we're kind of seeing. Not to get too political, but fuck, what the hell is happening? Seems like every time that we go to sleep, or at least whenever I go to sleep, I don't know what the hell is gonna be on the fucking news whenever I wake up. But this one is based on a set of lyrics, or song title actually, from the band The Smile, Thom Yorke's other band other than Radiohead. I'm a big fan of both.
But for this one, we start off with the original image, except we put a little bit of a lens distortion on it that pumps out the center a little bit. And then I have this big group of a bunch of that same image. There's a diffuse on all of them, and they're increasing in the opacity and also being offset a little bit more and more each and every time. So we'll start off with the original one, and then bop, 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 bop. And then I have a little bit of a color overlay, a little color gradient over top of it. We add the text to it with a little bit of noise and a little bit of a Gaussian blur, and then a little color overlay on top of all that for the color variations. This one has a linear burn effect.
But yeah, I really like how I ended up treating the text on this one, and I really like the subtle fade back of the image in the background, the reference image. Next one we got Don't Worry, You Are On Track. The meaning of this one is kind of based in like that irrational fear that you're kind of behind everybody else that's around you, and that you could be doing better, this, that. But in reality, you're on your right track. It might just take you a couple detours and a little bit longer to get there. And there's a little bit more meaning on it behind it, like a little bit more in depth on my Instagram.
I found this cool image of this Volkswagen sitting perfectly below this one cloud up in the sky. That would be great for some text to go up in the sky and down below as well. For this one, I kept it extremely simple, and I just took that original image, added some noise to that image, and then I added my text. For the text used here, we got Sora, and we also have Bidena. And down here, I also have my little website and Instagram at, but cute little inspirational poster. This one is one of my favorites. To start off, we got the original reference image on the very bottom. The original reference image itself is awesome, but I centered it to where the moon and the Empire State Building would be perfectly centered with the center of the page. Then on top of that, we have one that has some noise and diffusion. On top of that, we have a 29% opacity, one with a diffuse halftone. For this one, I used a color halftone. Then we add our text to it. And then to get to different color variations of this, once again, add a rectangle on top, put it roughly in the center, put a color overlay effect, and then you can get some really cool looks out of this. This one warms it up a little bit, kind of makes it look like it's sunset. Over here in the light blue, it looks really cool as well. This one adds a really nice dark orange shadow on the side of the Empire State Building. Yeah, I really like the composition of this poster. This poster design I made back on the end of January, and it's a little bit of a self-portrait of myself. The layers in this are a mess because it was one of the first ones that I made and I did not care about the layers. But I started off with this image of myself. This is a little outfit that I did for a Halloween party with some friends. I was Johnny Silverhand from Cyberpunk. I made this myself, this tank top. But obviously in the original, I'm holding up a phone to take this selfie of my pic, so I blurred that out and extended my hair a little bit more. I didn't try too hard on it because I knew that I was going to make a halftone out of it. But bam, there's the halftone. Added this grainy black texture to the background with some rectangles for the image and some of the text I would add later. Added this really light watercolor paper texture to the background. Then I added these little squares to add a little bit of visual interest around the text boxes and the date. A little bit of information of what I was feeling at the time. An old paper texture that is multiplied on the background. A couple of these little star things. My last name. The quote-unquote issue number. A barcode that takes you to my website. A couple eyes surrounding the issue number. And bam! Then going on from that, we got the one that I made the next month. This one I like a whole lot less, but I started with this selfie of myself this time, and I half-toned and diffused that one. Took these little sketches from my sketchbook for my name and issue number, ended up slapping those in down here and up here. Added this red rectangle with an exclusion to make the background this pink color. Half-toned and diffused my name. Added that same red on top that makes it green since it's not being excluded with another diffuse. Then added it in black on top of that with a diffuse and a screen effect. Thought about adding these funny glasses at a time, didn't. For the text that I was feeling, I put it kind of around the page. Put this hue level shift on top of everything, so instead of it being blue and orange like it originally was, or blue and red, it made it pink and green. But yeah, don't like this, but I made it. Oh well.
Next design we have Moral Panic is Setting In. This is the design that I made around the lyrics from Nothing But Thieves song, and I ended up doing 3 different variations of this one, and I think all of them look super sick.
But starting off, we got this original image, very symbolic to what the poster design is about for me. Go check out my Instagram to see a little bit of the meaning behind that in the post. But I centered this shopping cart image into the center of here. Then on top of that image, I added a diffuse halftone with it dividing the background. Added my text on top of it. Then I added this color rectangle with the reflect selected. That really pops out the glow of the streetlights and most importantly, the fire in the shopping cart. And to get the color variations, we just simply go around the wheel.
It's very topical with the world right now, especially with America, and I feel like the burning shopping cart is very symbolic with the rising prices of literally everything. Like fuck, I swear a few months ago last year, whenever I was going to buy eggs, they were like $2, maybe even less for a carton. I just went and got some eggs the other week and they were $6 for 12 eggs. So yeah, it's quite literally insanity out there. And I thought that this was a topical poster to make around that. And I think it looks absolutely sick. Next poster design is It's About Time to Go.
This is the original image that I found off of Pinterest. And then for this image, I brought it in, cropped it in to the size, added some noise to it, And then I cropped out the car, the guy, and the light post in the foreground. And then I did a live diffuse, halftone, and noise to the background. Then I cut out the car, man, and light post in the foreground and did a live diffuse, halftone, and noise around them. Then I was debating on doing the inverse of that as well and taking only the car and doing a diffuse gradient with the car. This is what that would have ended up looking like, but I didn't like how that ended up looking. I kind of liked it just like this because it made it a little bit darker, easier to see. Then I added in some white text for one of the variations, but I ended up liking the yellow text instead because it brought some of that color of the car back into the rest of the darkness. Then at the bottom I added my little website and Instagram.
The meaning of this poster design is similar to the "Don't Worry, You're on Track," with a similar car as like the focus of it, and the meaning is a little similar, but the meaning is a little bit different on this one. You have all your friends who are off and going to make their dreams come true, and they're off on their journey in life to make their goals happen. And maybe you're like me, who spent the first 2 years out of college with my graphic design degree not really doing much, not really going much of anywhere. So I thought that the parking lot that was empty with just this one guy and just his car was symbolic to like me, where everybody's already gone and left, but I'm still kind of where I was whenever I left college. So the meaning behind this is essentially like what it says. It's about time to go. It's about time for me to actually do the stuff that I want to do and make those dreams come true and catch up to the other guys. Next design that I have is Stop and Go. This one is after Albert Hammond Jr. song lyric and song title, Stop and Go. If you couldn't tell from last video and my tour of my record collection down here, I'm a big Strokes fan and subsequently a big Albert Hammond Jr. fan. And I had the idea for a while to do some kind of design around a stoplight with the stop and go of Albert Hammond Jr. So I came up with this one.
For this one, I color swapped the individual lights of the light for stop and go, but we started off with this image of the stoplight. Then on top of it, we added a diffuse halftone version of it, blending mode of the halftone set to soft light. Then I added my text in color with a diffuse on it. Then in normal at 7% with a diffuse on it. Then in normal at 100% with a diffuse on it. With the diffuses going from 10 to 5 to 2. Then I added a noise on top of all of it, and then I saturated the entirety of it with this green color to make the original image pop a little bit more.
It's not the most crazy design, but I think that it's cute. It looks kind of nice. I think that I could have executed it a little bit better, but I kind of like how it turned out.
For this one, I found this nice image of this telephone pole with some little birdies standing on top of it in the clouds in the background. Then I wrote a few things in my sketchbook to bring in. So starting off, we have the original image cropped into the size that I wanted. Then we took the image and we diffuse half-toned it and divided it, similar to the last poster. Then we got one that is at 56% opacity with some noise and a screen effect. And this one is slightly offset upwards. And then we have one with the same, but 6%, also offset a little upwards. Then we add in my text from my sketchbook. Then I got a picture of some film burn and I added that around the borders. So it brings a very slight glow vignette into it. And that is it.
Next one that I really like how it turned out, we got my Pop 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 poster design. This one I did over a Danny Brown and Idols track titled Pop Pop Pop. I had been recently really bopping this song and listening to it on repeat because it sounds so cool. The production of this is just crazy.
Started off with this original image from Pinterest, added on top of it a vivid light blending mode with diffuse and halftone, then one of the original image with an average blending mode and depth of field blur, then one on top of that with a depth of field blur and noise. Then I added the text, but I realized that the P, the first P of pop, is kind of hard to see, so I added this little bit of noise to the background there. And this is what it looks like without any colors, but of course I did some color variations of it. One that is the original color that they used for the single art, and then I did one in purple and in green as well.
I'm super proud of every single variation. I really like how this design turned out. And this one ended up actually getting a decent bit of likes in comparison to the other ones that I posted on my Instagram. So it seems that other people like it as well. If you haven't listened to the song, go and listen to the song. It is sick. Last poster design of the month that I'm covering, the first month of design, is Find Your Way. This one is a bit of an inspirational poster design, as most of my designs are.
I originally started off with this reference image from Pinterest. Then on top of the original image, I cropped out the two subjects and the stairs that they're standing on to make them a little larger. I feel like it blends perfectly in with the original background. You kind of can't tell that I enlarged them. Then on top of that, I took a 34% opacity version of the original with a black and white halftone and diffuse. Then I added a little bit of noise on top of that. Not too much, just 10%. Then I added my text on top of it, and then I thought that it was missing a little bit of extra interest, so I added some little stars with some little bit of diffuse on each of them, and a mask out circle in the center, and that is it.
And the meaning behind the poster is essentially, you might not have everything figured out, you might not even know what your purpose is yet in life. You might think that you have an idea, but have you actually tried to go and do that? If you haven't tried that idea out that you have for yourself right now, go and try it. See if it's for you, see if it's something that you want to do. And if not, then take some time for yourself and try some shit out. Not everything is going to be for you. You're not going to know what to do for everything. You're not going to have it figured out the first time around, surely. But once you do find out what you want to do, you'll be a lot better off for it and a lot happier in your life. But with that, that was 30 days of poster design, or poster and album design, I guess. If you watched through the entirety of this video, I greatly appreciate it. Let me know which of these poster designs that I went through in this video are your favorites. I like a lot of them, and I don't like some of them, but maybe you liked those ones that I didn't like. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite ones were and why. And please consider going and following me on Instagram for these daily designs, and liking this video and subscribing to the channel for future content. I've been really trying to do some weekly uploads on this channel. I don't have it all figured out yet, what I want this channel to be. Right now, the channel is kind of a mix of vlogs and videos like this where I'm talking about my interests and my design. Let me know what you guys want to see, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.